Hi, Peter Charles here, Hooked for Life Fly Fishing. And today let's tie the McLeod Ugly. It's a fly that's meant for the Washington and British Columbia rivers. It dates from the early 60s, and it's an interesting pattern because it involves a grizzly palmered hackle. A lot of typical steelhead flies don't use that technique, so if you've never palmered a hackle before, this is a great opportunity to try. So let's get started. Our hook today is a mustad salmon single in a size 4. Our thread is a black uni and a 6/0. Our tail is actually the fluff from saddle hackle, red saddle hackle. So instead of using the clean barbs, we're going to use the fluffy bits. Our rib is a uni French, medium silver oval. The body is black chenille. We're using grizzly natural and a saddle hackle. And our wing is black bucktail. So let's get tying. Okay, I pulled off a clump of that fluffy stuff. Pinch loop it into place. There we go. I'm just going to wrap that back a little bit more. I'm just going to come in and trim the waist off. There we go. The next step is to tie in our palmered grizzly hackle. I prepared this feather. Now the tricky bit with palmering is to make sure you've got a long enough feather. You have to wrap it around the body. So it has to be long enough to make it all the way around. So let's tie that in. And now our rib. And because we're using a chenille body, you don't have to get too crazy about what goes underneath it. It's not going to show. So it would generally be neater than this if I was, say, putting on a floss body. And as usual, I've trimmed off a little bit of the fluff from the chenille, so I have a tying end point. And I'll just wrap that forward. So we'll wrap in our chenille. Just sort of get it onto the return and stop there. Keep it under the hook. Okay, now we have a choice. This gets interesting. I'm going to be palmering on the hackle. I'm also going to be winding rib. Now, one of the ways to do it is we can cross over by counter-winding the rib. The advantage of that is it locks the palmered hackle in place. The quills are relatively delicate. The tooth of a fish could break it. If you've crisscrossed, it locks it in place. Another way you see people do it, they'll palmer and then they'll wrap the rib right alongside going forward. That works too. But there's always a risk of trapping a bunch of fibers. I'm going to show you a different method, and what I'm doing here is kind of sneaky, is I'm going to wrap the rib first, and then I'm going to dig the quill in after it, right alongside of it. So you can imagine my pinky is the quill, and my thicker forefinger, I'll put that over here so you can see it, my thicker forefinger is the tinsel. The tinsel sort of guards the quill, and especially if you dig this into the chenille, it'll almost drop behind the rib. So I'm going to put the rib on first, but I always like to use hackle pliers when I'm putting on rib. Just helps me hang on to it. Now, I'm not going to counterwind it now. I'm just going to go in the regular direction. Now I'm going to palmer on my saddle hackle, grizzly saddle hackle. Now I'm going to have to be careful here. I'm going to have to run this along the rib. So you're going to have to take your time. And if you're trapping barbs, just take your time to pick them out. Now, if you want to be really neat, you'd sit here and pull all these extra bits off here. I'm just going to try and strip a few of them away so I can get my thread in there without trapping a bunch. Yeah, I got a few strays in there. I'll pick that out. This is a good time to come in with a toothbrush after you've locked this in place, is to just clean it up with the toothbrush. Get some of the strays out of it. There we go. Nice and spiky appearance. Now I've got my bucktail for the wing and the hair stacker. Okay, we'll size it just a little bit shorter than the tail. Okay, there's our McLeod Ugly, all ready to go fishing. It's quite an interesting looking pattern. It has a nice fluffy red stuff at the back and a palmered grizzly hackle which will just vibrate in the water. It's a cool pattern. I've done really well with grizzly palmered hackles over the past years. It just looks great in the water. So give it a try. Simple pattern, you can knock them together quite quickly, and it's a good first introduction to palmering hackle. Cheers.